Welcome back everyone, and thank you for tuning in again to our channel where we dive deep into the extraordinary, the bizarre, the unbelievable, and the mysterious corners of the collecting world. And today we're jumping straight into one of the wildest stories ever whispered around the numismatic community, a narrative that blends myth, speculation, rare coin culture, minting anomalies, and the electrifying possibility that a simple penny, yes, a humble 2011 D Lincoln Shield cent, could hypothetically skyrocket to an outrageous value like $17 million because of a perfect storm of errors, mistakes, anomalies, production freak accidents, and improbable circumstances that collectors fantasize about. So settle in for a wild ride as we unravel every layer of how such a thing could happen, what kinds of minting mistakes might launch an ordinary coin into the upper stratosphere of collectible value, and why the dream of discovering a multi-million-dollar penny fuels so much excitement among treasure hunters, roll searchers, estate sale explorers, and curious newcomers who can't help but imagine that somewhere in their pocket change could be a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. And to truly pull you into this world, we need to build a complete picture of how such a coin could come to exist in the first place, how mint errors occur, how the smallest overlooked imperfection can explode into astronomical value when rarity, desirability, notoriety, controversy, and provenance converge perfectly, and why the 2011 D issue in particular has become a magnet for rumors that whisper about a single experimental striking gone wrong, or perhaps gone incredibly right, a coin allegedly escorted out of the Denver Mint under circumstances so strange that the entire story sounds like it could be the setup for a heist film. Though for our fictional script today we're focusing on the sheer what-if potential. What if a coin like this really existed? What if it bore a combination of mistakes not only unheard of in modern coinage but so statistically improbable that the odds of its creation would be comparable to winning the lottery multiple times in a row, stacking improbabilities until the final object becomes the numismatic equivalent of a unicorn? And to appreciate that level of value we need to examine the entire chain of events that coin enthusiasts imagine when they talk about the perfect error coin, starting with the planchet, because before a coin is ever struck it must begin as a blank prepared to exact specifications, and if that planchet itself were flawed, say it wasn't copper-plated zinc as it should be but instead a leftover pre-1982 bronze blank that somehow slipped through inventory after decades, or an experimental stainless steel test planchet included by accident, or even an off-metal planchet intended for a completely different denomination like a dime or a foreign coin that accidentally became part of the production line, this alone could produce an error worth thousands. But in our hyper-extreme $17 million hypothetical, that's only step one, because for this coin's imagined value to reach such an absurd level, that planchet error must combine with other mistakes such as a wildly misaligned die strike, a double-denomination strike, or even the most coveted rarity of all, a mule error, where the obverse and reverse don't match because mismatched dies were accidentally paired. And imagine if a 2011 D cent obverse was struck with a reverse die from a totally different coin, perhaps a dime or a commemorative piece or an experimental die never meant for circulation, and if this mismatched combination only happened once before the error was caught and corrected, that would create a one-of-a-kind piece, a genuine modern mint marvel that collectors would fight over ferociously. And we're not even done stacking the hypothetical mistakes yet, because to push the value into the $17 million range, this coin would likely need to exhibit additional anomalies like dramatic doubling on the date and lettering, the kind produced by a hub doubling error so extreme it makes the digits swell, distort, or appear ghosted, and collectors absolutely obsess over such doubling because it's physical evidence of a mechanical hiccup in the die-making process. But imagine the doubling so dramatic that the 2011 date appears almost 3D, with the D mint mark floating at a strange angle, magnifying the visual impact until it becomes immediately recognizable as unlike anything ever documented, the sort of doubling so intense and so visually shocking that it becomes a conversation piece even among experts who have seen thousands of varieties. And now combine that with a planchet crack shaped in an eerie, almost symbolic pattern, maybe resembling a lightning bolt or even an accidental profile or pattern that numismatists would argue about for years, because symbolic or accidental shapes often feed the folklore that helps raise a coin's cultural value. And then imagine that this coin also has a partial collar strike leaving a dramatic railroad rim effect along one edge. But even that isn't enough yet, because for a piece like this to achieve such mythic value it must also have a backstory, a narrative so bizarre or compelling that it becomes forever intertwined with the coin's identity, such as rumors that a Denver Mint employee accidentally created this coin during a late-night calibration test on new machinery, struck the coin on the wrong planchet using the wrong die pair, noticed the catastrophic mistake, and in a panic set it aside rather than destroying it, only for the coin to disappear mysteriously, surfacing years later at an estate sale tucked inside a dusty bag of common pennies inherited by someone who had no idea they held something extraordinary. And once the coin entered the collector market, people would begin analyzing it incessantly, debating its legitimacy, authenticity, origin, and statistical likelihood, with metallurgical tests revealing the shocking truth that the metal composition didn't match any officially documented planchet type known for that year or even that decade, leading to speculation that it was part of a top-secret experiment with alternative metals, a project the Mint never released to the public. And suddenly the coin is no longer just a mint error, it becomes an artifact of potential historical significance. Something born of bureaucratic confusion, experimental metallurgy, human error, and perhaps even light institutional secrecy, and this would drive collectors wild because provenance like this, whether fully confirmed or shrouded in mystery, fuels bidding wars, and values skyrocket when multiple major factors converge: extreme rarity, visual appeal, controversy, mysterious backstory, and intense collector demand. But the fantasy doesn't stop there, because in this imagined scenario word spreads fast across auction houses, social media, and numismatic forums, sparking global curiosity and turning the coin into a viral sensation as people debate whether it's a real mint product, an anomaly produced during experimental testing, or a miracle accident that slipped past government quality control. And such debate alone pushes values higher, because collectors are drawn to controversy the way moths are drawn to light, and as the buzz increases, major authentication services examine the coin under electron microscopes, confirming mechanical strike characteristics that absolutely prove it was struck at the mint. Yet the unusual combination of errors is so unprecedented that even specialists must invent new terminology to describe its hybrid nature, calling it a multi-generation compound anomaly or something equally dramatic, and this classification inspires a tidal wave of articles, videos, interviews, and research papers analyzing every microscopic line, gouge, and deformation, all of which magnifies the coin's status in the numismatic universe, giving it an aura of near-mythological significance, almost like the coin world's version of a legendary gemstone with a cursed or miraculous past. And then comes the climactic moment. A major auction house takes possession of the coin and markets it as the most spectacular modern U.S. mint error ever discovered. A coin so improbable that experts estimate the odds of such a combination of anomalies occurring simultaneously as less than 1 in several trillion, and collectors, investors, museums, and private foundations all prepare to bid, each driven by a mix of obsession, pride, fear of missing out, and the belief that owning the most extraordinary mint error of the modern era would cement their legacy permanently. And as the bidding war erupts, prices leap from thousands to millions, then from millions to the realm of the unbelievable, until someone, perhaps a billionaire collector, a tech magnate with a fascination for rare artifacts, or an investment consortium seeking to lock away a cultural treasure, places the winning bid of $17 million, instantly transforming the once humble penny into a global sensation and redefining the boundaries of what a mint error coin could ever be worth. And now the legend grows even more because after the sale the world continues discussing it, analyzing it, theorizing about it, and wondering if such a perfect storm of mistakes could ever happen again, sparking intensified treasure hunting across the country as more people check their pocket change, coin rolls, and forgotten jars, hoping lightning might strike twice. And in this way the hypothetical $17 million 2011 D1 cent becomes more than a coin. Next, 2021 1 cent coin. Today we're diving into one of the most astonishing tales ever whispered in the realm of coin collecting, a wild and electrifying narrative about a hypothetical 2021 Lincoln Shield 1 cent coin that allegedly soared to an unbelievable value of $15 million, a number so outrageous and so breathtaking that it instantly captures the imagination of anyone who hears it. And as incredible as that value sounds, the legend behind it is even more astonishing because this fictional coin is said to have become extraordinarily valuable due to a series of compounding mistakes, freak accidents, minting anomalies, mechanical misalignments, unexpected metal experiments, statistical impossibilities, and numismatic mysteries that created what some collectors in this fictional tale call the most improbable modern mint error in existence. And in today's story we are exploring every nook and cranny of this hypothetical scenario to understand exactly how a 2021 penny, normally worth just 1 cent, could theoretically escalate into a multi-million-dollar treasure if it possessed a perfect storm of rare errors that collided in a way the mint never intended. So sit back, settle in, and imagine with me the long chain of unusual events that would have to occur for such a coin to capture the attention of collectors across the world, ignite debates on social media, set auction houses buzzing with speculation, and ultimately lead to a final sale price that seems almost impossible, because in the realm of mint errors rarity and demand drive everything, and when the rarity is extreme and the story is wild enough, collectors begin to view these strange anomalies not as defects but as miracles of mechanical mishaps that transform an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And this story begins not with the strike of the coin itself but with the planchet, the humble blank disc that becomes a coin after it is struck between 2 dies, and in this hypothetical narrative we imagine that the planchet used to create this infamous 2021 1 cent was itself an anomaly, perhaps not the expected copper-plated zinc alloy used in modern pennies but instead a rare off-metal blank that somehow found its way into the production line, maybe a leftover bronze planchet from decades earlier, or a stainless steel experimental blank tested for a discontinued project, or even a rejected test planchet meant for a foreign contract the mint never completed. And such an anomaly would already make the coin worth thousands because off-metal errors are highly desirable, but in our fictional tale this is only the starting point because things are about to get much stranger as we imagine the mint machinery malfunctioning during the striking process, causing a series of dramatic errors to stack on top of one another in a way no technician could have predicted, beginning perhaps with a die misalignment so extreme that the obverse and reverse are not centered correctly, leaving thick rims on one side and razor-thin rims on the other, creating a strikingly distorted visual effect that collectors love because it makes the coin look instantly unusual. But the misalignment doesn't occur alone because at the exact same moment the obverse die is suffering from severe die fatigue, causing a dramatic double die effect that stretches the numbers and the date, makes the motto appear doubled with ghost-like shadows, and causes the profile of Lincoln to look warped in a surreal almost artistic way. And collectors adore such doubling because it provides visible evidence of a mechanical hiccup, but in our hypothetical $15 million scenario the doubling would need to be so extreme and so visually shocking that even professional graders would gasp at its intensity. And then imagine that the mint mark area shows a bizarre deformation, perhaps an accidental die gouge shaped like a crescent slicing through the plating, creating a unique diagnostic marker that makes this coin unlike any other known example. But we're still not done building this monstrous stack of anomalies because now we introduce one of the rarest possibilities of all, the mismatched die combination known as a mule error, a situation so rare and so prized that only a handful of known mules exist in all of US minting history. And imagine if during a rushed machine switch or human oversight the obverse of the 2021 Lincoln cent was accidentally paired with a reverse die intended for a completely different denomination, maybe a dime or a nickel or even an experimental reverse never put into circulation, and the moment the press activated it created a coin bearing 2 mismatched designs that were never meant to coexist. One single strike before the machine jammed, alerted the operator, and halted production, resulting in only one solitary mule error before the mistake was corrected. And if this catastrophic combination occurred on an off-metal planchet already exhibiting extreme doubling and severe misalignment, it would create a compound mint error so unprecedented that experts would have to invent new terminology to describe it, something like a multi-layer composite anomaly. And now imagine that this coin also suffered from a partial collar strike, meaning the edge of the coin displays the distinctive railroad rim effect caused when the planchet isn't seated properly in the striking chamber, leaving part of the edge expanded and irregular while the rest remains normal, adding yet another layer to the rare error combination that seems statistically impossible. And as if all of that weren't enough, imagine that the copper plating failed in certain regions during striking, causing exposed zinc streaks to appear under magnification, giving the surface a marbled pattern that analysts would later describe as bizarre, exotic, and unlike any other known plating failure. And this would fuel even more speculation because plating Anomalies combined with off-metal planchets can lead to heated debates about whether the blank was experimental or the machine malfunctioned catastrophically, and those debates would spread across online coin forums, numismatic groups, collecting circles, and auction sites, driving the hype far beyond the typical interest surrounding modern mint errors. And as word spreads about the unusual piece, someone eventually sends it to a major third-party grading service for authentication, and imagine the stunned reactions when specialists put it under scanning electron microscopes, discovering microscopic strike characteristics, proving without a doubt that the coin was indeed minted by official equipment, but that its layered combination of errors was so unusual, so beyond anything ever documented, that the graders themselves struggle to categorize it using standard protocols, because modern coins rarely show even one major error, let alone an explosive cascade of them, and in this fictional scenario the graders classify it as unique, a one-of-one mint anomaly with no comparable example, no previous case, and no predictable explanation for how so many distortions occurred simultaneously, and this classification alone fuels its legend because collectors chase uniqueness more passionately than almost anything else. And once news breaks about the coin's existence, major auction houses begin contacting the owner, eager to secure the rights to sell the most shocking modern mint error ever found, and online forums erupt with speculation about what it might sell for, with some predicting hundreds of thousands while others boldly suggest it could break into the $1 million range. But as buzz builds and publicity spreads through videos, articles, interviews, and debates, the mystique surrounding the coin grows even stronger, and as different experts weigh in with theories about its origin, one speculation becomes the most exciting of all: the possibility that this coin may have been created during a brief experimental phase in 2021 when the mint reportedly explored alternative metals due to fluctuating material costs, meaning the off-metal planchet could be a rare leftover from a scrapped project, and if so, this coin becomes not just an error but a relic of a quietly abandoned government experiment, adding a whole new layer of intrigue to its backstory. And such intrigue boosts value because collectors love artifacts that represent unknown or hidden chapters in minting history, and soon the coin becomes the numismatic world's trending topic, with treasure hunters searching their change jars hoping to find something remotely similar, and rumor spreads that the lone owner plans to auction the piece, generating frenzied anticipation as the date approaches, and when the night of the auction finally arrives, the room is packed with wealthy collectors, private investors, museum representatives, and institutions eager to bid on a coin that has become more myth than metal. And as the bidding begins, the audience gasps when the first offer already crosses the $1 million mark, then $2 million, then $3 million, as hands raise and phone bids roll in from around the world, and the climb continues past $5 million, then $8 million, then $10 million, as the coin's legend fuels a bidding war so intense that the auctioneer can barely keep up. And as excitement reaches its peak, two final bidders face off, driving the price higher and higher until one makes the next 1993 1 cent. Today, as we dive into one of the most extraordinary stories in the world of numismatics, a tale that blends mystery, history, craftsmanship, accidents, and staggering financial value into a single copper-colored masterpiece, the legendary 1993 1 cent coin that has been rumored, whispered about, documented in rare circles, and feverishly hunted by collectors worldwide because of the extraordinary claim that one particular specimen with a unique combination of minting errors, production anomalies, metallurgical oddities, and inexplicable manufacturing events has been valued at an astonishing $10 million, an amount that sounds completely unbelievable for something as small, common, and usually insignificant as a penny, but becomes more understandable once we explore the astonishing details behind how such a thing could theoretically occur. How rare minting events line up like cosmic coincidences, how tiny marks can transform into monumental worth, and how the world of error coins often turns mere cents into fortunes for the lucky few who understand what to look for. So in today's deep exploration, we're going to unravel every possible layer of what makes a coin like this so sought after, starting with the foundation of why 1993 is a pivotal year in the United States Mint's production timeline, since it sits in an era where numerous changes were taking place behind the scenes, including shifts in planchet suppliers, adjustments in alloy distribution, the implementation of new die-making equipment, evolving standards for quality control, extensive experimentation with die polishing techniques, and the occasional testing of alternative metal compositions that never officially entered circulation but have long been rumored to exist tucked away within the minting records of the early 1990s. All of which opens the door to discovering unusual one-of-a-kind mistakes that collectors today would faint over if one happened to fall into their hands. Now when we talk about a coin being worth $10 million, we are not simply referring to just any error but a convergence of multiple extreme errors that on their own would already be valuable, but when found together create a once-in-a-century jackpot, such as a double struck off-center impression combined with an ultra-rare transitional planchet mix-up, where the coin might have been struck on a leftover bronze planchet instead of the expected copper-plated zinc blank, creating a rarity. Because bronze had long been phased out by 1993, and if such a coin were struck with a highly rotated die alignment, perhaps 180 degrees off the intended orientation, then paired with a dramatic die clash where the obverse and reverse dies were struck together without a planchet between them, leaving ghost-like impressions on both sides of the coin, the resulting visual anomalies would be unlike anything produced in normal minting conditions, offering collectors a combination of features so improbable that only a single coin could logically exist, especially if the piece further included microscopic engraving defects caused by failing die hubs that left unintended raised lines across Lincoln's portrait or within the Lincoln Memorial design, features that error specialists love to analyze because they reveal what the mint never meant to create. And imagine the same coin also showing signs of broad striking, meaning it was struck without the collar that normally contains its diameter, giving it a slightly expanded rim while still preserving the full design, a feature common in simpler errors but extraordinarily rare when paired with other major anomalies, and combine that with a possible mule error, where the obverse die of a 1993 cent was mistakenly paired with the reverse die intended for a different denomination or different year. Something that should never happen under modern minting protocols but has happened a few times historically, leading to some of the most valuable coins ever discovered. So if an actual mule pairing occurred in 1993, especially involving an experimental or unapproved reverse die, that in itself might fetch millions, but combine it with the other extreme possibilities we are describing and the value spirals into mythical territory. Furthermore, add the possibility of a rare die break known as a cud, where a chunk of the die breaks off and leaves a large raised blob of extra metal somewhere on the coin's surface, giving the piece a distinctive shape and making it easy to authenticate as a genuine mint error rather than a post-mint alteration, and if such a cut happened to appear near the motto, the date, or Lincoln's head, it would alter the overall appearance in a dramatic and unique way that would immediately catch expert attention. Next, consider the metal content itself. Since one of the most exciting aspects of rare coins is finding an unexpected alloy composition, and in the early 1990s there were persistent rumors of extremely limited test strikes using alternative metals for durability and cost analysis purposes, including experimental tin-zinc blends or even leftover brass planchets that were meant to be melted but occasionally slipped into production batches. So if the hypothetical $10 million penny were found to be composed of an unauthorized or transitional alloy, verified through spectrographic testing, this alone would make it priceless, especially if only one such example is known. Now imagine all these anomalies wrapped together with a nearly flawless preservation state, because condition plays a tremendous role in determining monetary value, and while errors are sometimes forgiven for showing circulation wear, the true multimillion-dollar coins often display astonishingly crisp details, suggesting they were struck, noticed very early, and somehow removed from circulation before being exposed to the wear and tear that typically erodes a coin's features. So in the case of this extraordinary 1993 1-cent coin, one could imagine it slipping through the minting machinery, being bagged with other coins, and then being discovered by a sharp-eyed mint worker, visitor, or early collector who recognized something unusual and kept it safe in pristine condition, allowing it to survive for decades untouched, perhaps stored in a protective capsule or envelope long before its value was understood. And the story becomes even more compelling when we consider how such an extreme error might have gone unnoticed by mint officials, which leads many to speculate about the chaotic and transitional periods the mint sometimes experiences when changing technologies or upgrading equipment, where miscommunication, machine malfunctions, rushed deadlines, and human oversight can accidentally combine to allow incredibly rare coins to escape into the world. And every collector knows that even with the strictest quality control procedures, the mint is still capable of astonishing blunders, as history has shown with famous error coins like the 1955 double die cent, the 1970 small date proof, the 1982 transitional composition errors, and more, each one proving that mistakes slip through the cracks, sometimes unnoticed for years, until they suddenly explode in value when authenticated by leading grading companies. Speaking of grading, any coin rumored to be worth $10 million must have passed through the hands of top experts, and part of the scripts. Fascination comes from imagining the moment such a coin was examined under magnification, with specialists identifying all the error mechanisms involved, documenting every microscopic detail, comparing it to mint records, cross-referencing the die markers, and ultimately declaring it a legitimate, unmatched, and historically significant piece that rightfully deserves a place among the most valuable coins ever known. And once authenticated, the coin would ignite a frenzy among elite collectors. Investors, museums, private institutions, and wealthy enthusiasts who chase rare coins not only for personal passion but also as multi-million-dollar alternative investments, fueled by the belief that certain numismatic treasures will only rise in value as time passes and the pool of available specimens shrinks. And alongside all this, there is also the psychological aspect of rarity, because people are naturally drawn to stories involving small, everyday objects becoming unbelievably valuable. Due to accidents of history and production, and the idea that a simple penny minted in 1993, a year most people barely recall in relation to currency, could suddenly become famous worldwide and command a price comparable to fine art, luxury real estate, or historic jewelry is a narrative that captures the imagination and fuels an almost primal excitement to search through every pocketful of change, every jar of old coins, and every forgotten box in the attic, hoping to discover a treasure hiding in plain sight. And this allure is precisely why stories like these go viral, inspire collectors, and deepen our fascination with error coins. Furthermore, considering the hypothetical $10 million 1993 cent invites us to reflect on how many undiscovered rarities may still be out there, coins resting in drawers or coin jars unnoticed, coins that were minted accidentally with unusual features but never properly inspected by their owners, coins waiting for someone knowledgeable to recognize their potential and bring them to the world's attention, especially in an age where numismatic eye last. 2014 1 cent. Today, as we dive into one of the most mind-bending, unbelievable, and electrifying stories in modern numismatics, a story that grabs your attention from the very first moment because it centers on something so ordinary that millions of people handle it every single day without ever suspecting that a tiny overlooked detail, a strange imperfection, or a split-second mistake in the minting process could transform it into a jaw-dropping treasure worth millions. And today we are exploring the truly astounding tale of the 2014 1-cent coin that has been rumored, analyzed, debated, and mythologized because of the suggestion that a single extraordinary specimen exists with such an impossible combination of errors and minting mistakes that experts and collectors alike estimate its theoretical worth at a staggering $13 million. A number so unbelievable for a modern penny that people are instantly hooked by the mystery and excited to learn what kinds of errors could possibly elevate something so small and common into an object of almost mythical financial value. And as we embark on this long and immersive journey through the possibilities, the numismatic logic, the rare circumstances, and the extraordinary conditions that would have to combine to produce a coin of such value, we begin by welcoming you into the fascinating world of minting anomalies, where the smallest mechanical misalignment, the slightest metal irregularity, or even a rare production oversight can turn into a priceless artifact, where 1 cent suddenly becomes worth millions because it captures a moment in minting history that was never meant to occur, and where collectors compete for the rarest, most visually dramatic, and most mechanically intriguing pieces ever created by accident. So as we unravel the legend of the 2014 1-cent coin allegedly worth $13 million, we must first explore what made the year 2014 interesting within the United States Mint, because although it was not a transitional year for composition like earlier decades, it was a period when mint technology had evolved to a level of precision that theoretically should have eliminated most major errors, thereby making any significant oversight incredibly rare and therefore incredibly valuable. And it was also a time when the Mint was implementing and testing various modern die production technologies, experimenting with digital hubbing improvements, refining laser polishing techniques, and optimizing automated quality control systems, all of which, ironically, create an environment where a massive error is both nearly impossible and unimaginably precious when it does occur. Now imagine the kinds of mistakes that would have to occur to elevate a 2014 penny to such tremendous worth, starting with the possibility of a double strike where the coin is struck once, then fails to eject correctly, leading to a second dramatic strike that overlaps the first at an unusual angle, distorting Lincoln's portrait and leaving the date partially duplicated in a way that only a handful of coins in history have ever displayed. And imagine this double strike being paired with an off-center alignment so significant that perhaps 30 to 60% of the design is missing while the rest remains sharply detailed, creating a visually stunning error that collectors immediately recognize as extremely rare. But we are not stopping there, because a $13 million coin would need multiple overlapping errors, and one of the most valuable mistakes imaginable is a wrong planchet strike. And even though the Mint no longer uses bronze planchets for cents, it is still possible in theory for a stray blank from another denomination, perhaps from a dime, a foreign coin batch, or a leftover experimental alloy, to accidentally enter the coin hopper and be struck with the 2014 cent dies, creating a wrong metal 2014 cent that weighs differently, sounds differently, and tests differently under metallurgical analysis. And if such a coin were struck on a leftover planchet that was never meant to be used for circulation coins, such as a test blank designed for hardness experiments or alternative plating research, then the coin would immediately become one of the most desirable modern era coins ever discovered. Now add to that possibility the dramatic visual effect of a die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions of Lincoln's silhouette faintly visible behind the Lincoln Memorial or shield design on the reverse, a phenomenon that not only fascinates collectors but also helps authenticate the authenticity of a Mint error, because die clashes create unique fingerprints that experts can trace back to specific dies used during production. And such a clash on a 2014 penny combined with a wrong planchet strike and extreme off-center double strike could create a wholly unique visual masterpiece. And if that alone does not justify $13 million, imagine the coin also having a rotated die alignment so severe that the reverse design is turned 90 to 180 degrees relative to the obverse, something that should be impossible under modern minting controls but can happen in extremely rare mechanical failures. And if this rotated alignment occurs simultaneously with other major errors, then the coin transforms from rare to nearly impossible. And it is precisely this impossibility that collectors pay fortunes for, because a combination of errors that defy modern minting procedures means the coin is likely one of a kind, a singular anomaly that cannot be replicated and therefore commands collector frenzy. And we can go even further by considering the existence of a dramatic die break or cud, where a chunk of the die breaks off and leaves a large raised blob or malformed area on the coin's rim or field, often creating shapes that distort the lettering or portrait. And if such a cut appeared near the date, covering part of the 2014, it would make the coin even more visually stunning and immediately recognizable, characteristics which are essential for coins that achieve massive values because they are not only technically rare but also aesthetically striking. And now let us consider an even more intriguing possibility, a mule error, where the obverse of a 2014 cent is accidentally paired with the reverse die of an entirely different coin, perhaps from a nickel, a dime, or even a discontinued or foreign coin die that should never have been present in the same production area. And although the Mint is exceptionally strict about die segregation, mule errors have occurred throughout history and have produced some of the most expensive coins ever sold, and a mule involving a modern cent would be unprecedented in scale, especially if paired with the previously mentioned errors, creating a once-in-a-lifetime coin of unimaginable worth. And beyond these mechanical errors, we must explore the metallurgical anomalies that could contribute to the $13 million valuation, such as an improper annealing error, where the planchet is overheated or underheated during preparation, causing unusual coloration, surface texture differences, or streaky metal flow patterns that experts can detect under magnification. And improper annealing is particularly interesting when it occurs on otherwise high-quality modern planchets, as it indicates a failure in highly automated processes, which in turn dramatically increases rarity. Additionally, imagine a scenario where the coin was struck using a planchet that retained microscopic rolling marks or lamination cracks, where the metal surface begins to peel or flake due to alloy inconsistencies, producing jagged patterns or partially detached layers that collectors find mesmerizing, and if such laminations occurred on a coin that already had extreme errors, it multiplies the uniqueness. Furthermore, consider the possibility of a broad strike where the collar that normally contains the planchet during striking fails, causing the coin to expand outward and lose its standard rim structure, while still retaining a fully visible design, and this type of error combined with an off-center double strike, wrong planchet, and rotated die creates an almost unimaginable cascade of minting anomalies, the kind that numismatists dream of documenting. And as if all of this were not enough, imagine that the coin somehow escaped the mint in near-perfect condition, perhaps because it became lodged inside machinery, protected from circulation, and later removed during maintenance, or perhaps it fell into a collector's hands immediately after production, leading to decades of careful preservation, which is critical because error coins of extreme rarity achieve their highest value when they display sharp details, crisp edges, and minimal handling marks. And now think about the psychology of the collecting world, where rarity drives value, where competition among wealthy collectors forces prices higher, where the uniqueness of a coin becomes a status symbol and a historical artifact rolled into one, and where the knowledge that no other example exists pushes bidders into multi-million-dollar territory. And if this 2014 cent is indeed a one-of-a-kind piece with a truly impossible combination of errors, then $13 million becomes not only believable but expected.